Good morning. Okay, well, we're going to run a tight ship because you guys know Jan Bryson and Daphne the way that I do. They want to make sure that we start on time and we allow enough time for you guys to really engage with our panel today. I think that this is the best session, the best panel that will be assembled throughout this conference. I mean, you guys are going to be able to hear from some of the people who work shoulder to shoulder every single day with our great mayor, Mayor Kasim Breed, in Atlanta. And so I am personally honored to be able to moderate this panel. I've worked with all of the folks who are on the dais, and they do outstanding work for the city of Atlanta every single day. My name is Tharon Johnson. I'm a director at Greenburg Trauig law firm. I co-chair the governmental law and policy group here. So what we're going to do is this. We're going to allow each member of the panel, he or she, to introduce themselves, tell you a little bit about their agency or their department, and then I'll ask a few questions, and then we want to leave some time at the end to really engage with you, because the one thing that we want to make sure that everyone in this room walks away with is a keen understanding of all the great work that's been done for our city. But more importantly, if there's questions or ideas that you may have, I know that these great panelists will want to share them with you. So with that being said, I'll start with Michael Sterling, and then we'll work our way down to the commissioner.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Michael Sterling. I am the Executive Director of the City of Atlanta's Workforce Development Agency. What our agency does every single day is we work with individual job seekers to help them attain the resources and support they need to find and maintain sustainable employment. Simultaneously, we also work with businesses and companies in the city of Atlanta to help them with their personnel needs and resource needs so that they get quality employees who are trained appropriately and bring skill sets to the jobs that are valuable so that businesses want to stay in the city of Atlanta and grow in the city of Atlanta.
Good morning. I'm Stephanie Stuckey-Benefield, and I'm Director of the Mayor's Office of Sustainability for the City of Atlanta. What our office does is work internally and externally to make Atlanta a top-tier sustainable city. Some of the initiatives we're currently pursuing include retrofitting over 100 city facilities for water and energy conservation, putting solar installations on 28 municipal buildings, electrifying the city's fleet with over 50 electric and plug-in electric hybrid vehicles and the accompanying infrastructure for the charging network. We just added the new, recently, the first urban agriculture director for the city. So we're working on tackling food deserts and making fresh, local, healthy food available throughout the city, increasing our city's green space, and we have a climate action plan. We're the first city in Georgia to have a climate action plan. And a key part of that initiative is reducing our greenhouse gas emissions. So that's just a sampling of what we're working on, and I'm happy to engage in a discussion with you all today about how we can support women in construction and women in engineering and make sure that you're involved in the important work we're doing at the City of Atlanta. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Theia Washington-Smith. I'm the Executive Director for the City of Atlanta's Women's Entrepreneurship Initiative. We are a community-facing initiative that is all about empowering women with the human, social, and financial capital they need to grow their businesses. So a fancy way of basically saying we are here to help women entrepreneurs in the City of Atlanta start and sustain businesses here. And the reason why that's so important, because as I sit here with so many fantastic counterparts and leaders in the City of Atlanta who are working every day to create equality for women, we have to really shift the way women are being at the table and being included in economic development opportunities. So while this city leads the nation in terms of the number of women who are starting businesses, we still have challenges around helping women stay in business and grow those businesses. Almost 90% of women who own businesses are the only employee. So we're focused on helping company building entrepreneurs with opportunities to grow so that we see women entrepreneurs in this city who are creating businesses that contribute to the economic development goals of our city.
Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Eloisa Klementich. I'm CEO for Invest Atlanta. Invest Atlanta is the economic development arm for the City of Atlanta. We focus on three basic areas. The first is we are going to do anything we can to stimulate the economy through new companies coming into the city. So you'll see us focus on attracting companies. We also focus on the companies that are currently here. How do we keep those companies continue to grow and strong? Those will continue to hire more individuals and to continue to invest. So within that, we have small business loans, which are there to help businesses. We focus on also a lot of development for your business in the city of Atlanta. Our last one is we really focus on community development. So what are we doing on key commercial corridors in specific areas that we call tax allocation districts to stimulate the economy? And this will look at retail strategies, we'll consider, we also look at food deserts as well, but really it's using our broad breadth of tools in the end to stimulate the economy. So we're looking at job creation and more investment.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Joann Macrina, and I'm the Commissioner of the Department of Watershed Management at the City of Atlanta. And I am responsible for all water. That includes drinking water, wastewater, and stormwater. I have a little bit over 1,600 positions that are busy every day making sure that when you turn on the tap, you have clean, safe drinking water. And when you flush your toilet, it goes away and gets treated. And we take care of the environment in the meantime. We also have a $1 billion capital improvement program, and that definitely does help stimulate the economy. And I'm sure you would be interested in hearing some details about that CIP. We have an annual revenue of approximately $600 million. However, because of our 2 consent decrees, a lot of that goes to pay off our debt for the money that we borrow. So a big part of my job is to ensure that we are good stewards of the public resources. That's dollars, people, equipment, and taking care of the environment.
Thank you. Thank you all. Commissioner Macrina, I'm going to stay with you for my first question. Can you sort of explain to the audience some of the big projects that you have been working on this year, and maybe some of the big projects that are very, very important to the city of Atlanta that you foresee will be very instrumental in making sure that the city continues to move forward next year as well?
Many of you may have read about the challenges in California with their drought and not having enough water supply. That's something that we have to deal with and be aware of is climate change. We can go in those cycles of going through drought periods and then going through very wet periods. Also, in light of that, we have to be very much aware of our aging infrastructure. ASCE gave us a report card, and even though we fared a little bit better than most of the country, our grades on that report card are still not good in wastewater and drinking water. So if anything keeps me up at night, it's thinking about providing safe, clean drinking water in a reliable manner. So the condition today of that water supply system is that we have a very, very old system. We built our first water treatment plant in 1893, and that's when we built our first pipelines. So if you consider that we have pipelines well beyond its typical lifespan, we need to start replacing that. We have 4 raw water pipes that draw water from the Chattahoochee to our water treatment plants. Half of the year, 2 of those lines are down. If the city of Atlanta ever ran out of water or we had to shut down our system, for each day, it would cost the city of Atlanta $100 million. So we decided that we had to build a new raw water supply system, and that's what we're doing today. We're replacing those surface water pipes with a tunnel. This is going to be a 5-mile tunnel. It will supply our 2 drinking water treatment plants and also end at the rock quarry, which some of you, I believe, have seen. And this rock quarry will end up providing us with a good raw water supply. And we will go from a 3-day supply that we currently have to a 30 to 90-day supply of raw water. So that should make everyone feel very comfortable that we will have a reliable system in the future. We have many, many other projects that are quite exciting and actually quite needed, along with our consent decree projects, which some of you, I know, are working on today.
And Dr. Klementich, the same question, and we'll just work our way down to Ms. Sterling.
So when it comes to economic growth and economic development, we look at Invest Atlanta for key catalytic projects that are going to spur other development. So we want to come in, we'd love to say we can do everything, but we can't. So we focus on very crucial projects that, again, will spur other investment. So some of those projects that we are looking at now go from underground and the redevelopment of underground, with the idea and the concentration about how do we get more people in the city's core. If you're a retail developer or have dealt with many retailers, they are going to count rooftops or the amount of people, depending on that, will drive their decisions about where they put retail and services. So when we're looking at addressing issues of grocery stores or food deserts, what we got to do, we think, is really focus on people. Once we get people, then we're going to get the services. It's got catch-22. So that is one project that we've been spending a lot of time on. The other is the Civic Center site, which is another great opportunity of a retail development. It's going to be mixed use, so we'll have housing, we're going to have retail and office all in one location. So we're excited about what that will do and the amount of economic activity that's going to generate for that part of town. Also looking at potentially bringing in a grocery store as an anchor to that facility. Then we're working very closely with the Fulton County Rec Authority on the Turner Field redevelopment. The Braves are moving at the end of this season, so what we're doing is finding an opportunity to now, how do we then take this parcel and make it much more active? How do we generate more economic activity? How do we address food deserts? How do we bring more retail to areas that have been underserved and under-retailed? There's activity in Midtown. There's a lot going on in Midtown. We've worked very closely with NCR. They are going to bring about 3,600 employees into their new headquarters. So if you look at today, if you look at Tech Square today, you have about 3,000 people living and working there at any one time at Tech Square. By 2019, that number will go up to 12,000, if not more. You've got NCR coming in. You've got the High Performance Computing Center coming in. That's the Portman project that we were also very involved in. That project is going to be very important. It will be the fastest data center in an urban core that I know definitely in the South, probably nationally. I suspect we're going to see a big amount of innovation and entrepreneurs coming out of that space. If you think about entrepreneurs and all that are in the room, right? If you had a product where, let's say you had to have two cars, I don't know, hit each other so you could test out whether your product could survive, making that up. But now they're doing a simulation, they're doing it with computer modeling. So you don't necessarily need to go buy two cars, you could actually pay someone and create the model. That sort of technology will be housed at that center. So, and then you have all the new development of housing. So this is really going to be a vibrant area, we think, for Midtown to continue to grow. You've got many new investments and opportunities in Buckhead and new ideas. So I would just say my list is pretty long, but a lot of great activity, great projects for the city of Atlanta.
Thank you.
So I mentioned in opening that our initiative is focused on doing one thing really and doing it well, which is intersecting women entrepreneurs with opportunities for growth. And I talked a bit about the human, the social, and the financial capital involved in that. And so I want to talk a little bit about how we are focused on that and what that means. So from the human capital piece, that really is focusing on providing entrepreneurs who happen to be women who are running company building business models that have an opportunity to create jobs and do what I think economic development really represents at its core, which is create job opportunities and growth within the city of Atlanta. So we're interested in connecting them with other people, with other leaders and counterparts within the city of Atlanta particularly, who can help make that happen. And one of the ways we're doing that with a group of 15 women we selected for a business incubator that runs for 15 months is by creating an advisory board, a high-level group of seasoned entrepreneurs, business influencers, key stakeholders involved in the city of Atlanta's blueprint for success, who can help these women really track how are they going to grow and how are they going to stay in this city? Because what we know for sure, regardless of where you get the research or the data points from, is that women who have mentors, and really I think entrepreneurs in general, who have mentors and have someone to help them avoid some of the pitfalls and have been there before and can offer the support that they need to grow, do phenomenally better than women who do not. And so I'm fortunate, I'm sitting next to one of our advisory board members. And as you hear Eloisa speak, when we're talking about the human capital piece of this, if you can imagine for a young company, an early stage company starting out, and having access to the CEO, the leader of our economic development arm, being able to reach out to her and get real on the ground advice as to how do I grow this business in this city? What are some of the things I need to keep in mind? Those are the sorts of resources and the opportunities I mean when I say we need to intersect these women with real tangible opportunities for growth. Same thing with the social piece of it. So we're interested in creating a community for women entrepreneurs in which they can interact and engage with one another and use each other as platforms for growth and support. And we'll be doing that in our space. The Women's Entrepreneurship Initiative's incubator space will house these 15 businesses over the next 15 months. And then from the financial capital piece of it, what we're focused on doing is connecting, again, these early stage companies with opportunities to access the funding they need to really grow. Because again, the numbers get very, very dismal when we start to talk about women, and particularly women of color, who have access to real funding opportunities to grow their businesses to the place where they can create jobs. So last year, 2015, only 12 women of color received funding, investment funding, over the $1 million mark. Not 12%, not 1,200, 12. 12 women across the country nationally. One of them is here and has worked closely with our Economic Development Authority to get some of that funding and make it happen. But those numbers are unacceptable, and that's where we really have to do the work to create opportunity for them to grow. The problem is that women often do not have access to these investment opportunities, nor are they articulate in how they could actually use them to their benefit to grow. So we're interested in partnering with some of our local companies and leadership here to make sure we're providing the financial empowerment that these women need to grow and support those businesses.
Thank you.
Well, I already spoke about some of the work we're doing. I'll just hone in on two programs in particular that I think would be of interest to the women and men in this room. I'm just curious, how many of y'all work in the built environment? By that I mean energy efficiency, water efficiency, retrofitting buildings, and solar. So I think those are huge opportunities for growth in the Metro Atlanta area. The City of Atlanta last year passed the Commercial Building Energy Efficiency Ordinance. We were the first city in the country to actually require water auditing as part of our ordinance. The water auditing and the energy efficiency auditing kicks in next year. So commercial buildings throughout the city, if they're 25,000 square feet and above, will need to have audits performed. So we see that ordinance as being a jobs driver and hopefully a terrific opportunity for women in business and for small businesses to get in this space. So I've reached out to ESCOs, energy savings companies, and a lot of them are very familiar with our ordinance, and also the Better Buildings Challenge, which is a voluntary program. It's a public-private partnership. It's run through the Department of Energy, and it encourages commercial building owners and nonprofits and municipal buildings to reduce their energy and water consumption 20% by 2020. We are the #1 city in the country for participation in the Better Buildings Challenge, which is huge. When you think of sustainability, I don't think Atlanta always gets on people's radars, but we are starting to get there, and we are now at the level where we are competing with Seattle and Portland and Los Angeles and a lot of the cities that people think of as being sustainable. And not only are we competing with them, we're beating them, right? So I'm a little competitive, as is the mayor, and I love it when we come out ahead of these other cities. And it just shows the commitment that Mayor Reed has and his administration to sustainability. But what Mayor Reed has stressed when he and I talk about sustainability is he sees it as a jobs driver, and he very much wants us all to partner in the work that sustainability is doing so that we are creating jobs and we're stimulating our economy through our sustainability initiatives. So I would encourage, if you're not in that energy efficiency or water efficiency space, I think there's lots of opportunities, and the city's working to push that. The other opportunity is solar. With our solar program, we're kick-starting only with 28 buildings, but we certainly hope to drive it further. And we were putting the program together, I needed a small solar company to help me vet the buildings. And I really looked hard to try to find a minority solar firm. I found one. And she's wonderful. I don't see her here, but Solar Concierge. And it's run by a woman, a Hispanic woman, and she did a terrific job. And she helped assess our buildings for us. And just, this is anecdotal, but when we had our bid conference for the solar RFP, and the bid package included minority participation, and they asked, are there any electricians in the room, who know how to do solar installations? There was one minority electrician who raised his hand, and that guy was mobbed afterwards. He got like 10 business cards. So I think if you're in the solar space and you can qualify as a minority under the city's procurement standards, there are really some good opportunities for you. So I'll leave it at that and hand it over to Michael. I have to say, it takes a very strong man to be on this panel of women, and Michael is definitely up to this task.
No, I feel fortunate. You all make me look good. When I think about projects, I think the entire Atlanta Workforce Development Agency has been a project of mine over the last year. But I will, specifically talk about 3 things we've done to really improve the quality of service that we offer, both to job seekers and to employers and businesses. One of the things that we've done is we've become far more data-driven than we've ever been before. So every month we issue a labor market intelligence report, which gives out a report on what is needed in the labor market at that given time. And we look at the numbers in a way that compares them year over year. So we know where the high demand job growth is. We know what certifications are most needed by businesses and companies in this city. We know what the educational attainment level of the job seekers are and what we need to do to better train them for the jobs that are available. We also issue a middle skills job report every quarter. And so we understand where those middle skills jobs are, where the high growth is in our city, and where we need to focus our energy on training people so that they'll have a path to sustainable permanent employment. 2 projects that we basically launched over the last year. One is, and Eloisa alluded to this, which is that, there's a lot of movement away from sort of these traditional, experiments in which companies used to test their products, and a lot more movement towards technology-based solutions. And so what you see is Atlanta's in the top 10, in terms of cities that have a skills gap between technology jobs that are available and the individuals who have the skills to attain those jobs. And so we decided to do something about it in partnership. And Eloisa talked a little bit about what's going on in Tech Square. We partnered with Tech Square Labs, and we launched the first of its kind coding school, where we basically take individuals, the federal term for them is out of school youth. So these are individuals who are, between the ages of 18 and 24, who either graduated high school or they dropped out of high school and got a GED, but they haven't finished college. Or maybe they went and did a little college and dropped out, but they haven't finished college. They don't have an advanced degree. They don't have a post-secondary diploma. And we basically took these individuals through a competitive process, and we launched a coding school where we provide you with housing. We provide you with a stipend per month. So you get a $500 per month stipend. We completely pay for your housing. We completely pay for your tuition to attend the coding school. So we pay for all of the fees. You have mentors in the coding school. So you meet with somebody every month. You have a career counselor. And when you finish the coding school, you then go through an entrepreneurship program. You then go through a career readiness program, a culture fit program. And so we basically tried to, I worked with Tech Square Labs, and we basically said, if we had to take away every excuse, every barrier for someone who traditionally wouldn't go through a program like this, how would we build this out? And we built it out. And it didn't take us, the mayor likes to say, you don't need a committee for everything. We didn't need a committee for this. I wrote this out. Me and Rodney Sampson at Tech Square Labs wrote this out on sticky notes, and we went back to our respective offices and said, we're gonna launch a school in 2 months. And, by March of this year, we had the school launched and we had the housing in place and we had the stipends in place. And so we believe that if we do this right, we'll be able to increase the number of individuals who have the skills and abilities to go into a lot of these technology jobs. They're all learning how to code Java, which is really the basis for learning coding language. And these are individuals who traditionally would not, go into technology. And only about 5% of the technology jobs are held by people who are of color, right? And so we're gonna, create a more diverse and inclusive technology employee base. The other thing we launched was our below the line film and entertainment training program. And this is where we saw all of this growth happening in the film industry. And individuals who actually have the hard skills to do a lot of these jobs. But what the film industry was telling us was they don't have the cultural understanding of how movies work to be able to work on our sets. So you may know how to build a set because you've got a construction certification, or you may know how to do, or you may have a welding certification and you know how to put some things together. But because of the way the movie industry works, they like you to have a particular cultural understanding of how they operate. Long hours, late nights, weekends, never late, show up on time. And so I said, well, what if we could offer some incentives to some of these production companies to take people right here in the city of Atlanta who are in the neighborhoods you're filming in and put them on sets and train them through an apprenticeship program. And that's what we did. And we started with 7. And they loved the program so much they came back to us and said, we'll do another 15, and then we did another 30. And so we've got about 35 to 40 people right now working on the sets in all sorts of different jobs in culinary and set design and set building and costume design, working on the sets right now of Sleepy Hollow and The Walking Dead and Myers Christmas. And these are some of the productions that came on board with us. And so we really dispelled that rumor that Atlanta didn't have the talent or the ability to put folks on these sets. And so now what you're seeing is a more robust partnership between the production companies that are shooting in the city and individuals from the city who are able to go into those jobs and get those jobs. And 35 to 40 doesn't sound like a lot, but the president always says you got to do things incrementally. And so we start incrementally, and we believe that we're going to keep going because we started with 7, and within 6 months we had another 35 on these sets. And so those are some of the major projects we've been working on.
Well, thank you all for those overviews and really highlighting those projects that you are working on. And I think the mayor would be very, very happy to know that you guys are been very formal. So now we're going to have a little fun. And so I want to mix it up a little bit because I know all of you, and I want to have a little fun and really engage the audience. And so I'm going to start with Stephanie. So Stephanie, you talked a lot about what you're doing at the city and what the city is doing to be a more sustainable city. What can we as citizens of Atlanta, what are the 3 things as citizens that we can do in our everyday lives, from waking up in the morning to when we put our kids to sleep? What can we do as citizens to be more sustainable to help the city in its plight?
That's a great question. So it's interesting, I speak to a lot of school and community groups, and I think for many people, their first point of contact with sustainability and the city is recycling. And that's a relatively easy thing to do. So if you live in the city limits, you should have your big blue bin, your Cartlanta. So participate in that program. It's relatively easy. We have what's known as single stream recycling, which means you put all your recyclables, the plastics, the aluminum, the glass, the paper, the cardboard, in that bin. You don't have to sort it, and then you have your trash. Just don't mix the trash in with recycling, because that contaminates it and the whole recycling thing will go into the trash. So recycling is a really easy way. Another is to take transit or to bike or walk, but just commit yourself to maybe one trip a week, or even better, a day, where you're not taking your car, unless you're driving an EV car, that's an exception. But it's also good for your health. When I was looking at our greenhouse gas data, and we're putting our data together for 2015, it's no surprise that one of our largest emitters of greenhouse gas in the city of Atlanta are our cars. And so if you can just reduce your the time that you are driving, that will help not only our air quality, but improve your health and improve our congestion, because we have just a little bit of a traffic problem in the city of Atlanta, right? And third, I would say, because I just came from Trees Atlanta, they had a wonderful breakfast this morning, and the head of the Beltline spoke, and I would say enjoy the city's parks and all of our recreation opportunities, including the Beltline, and just get out in nature and just be a part of the wonderful, dynamic green space opportunities that are here in the city of Atlanta. And since I came from Trees Atlanta, plant a tree and volunteer for Trees Atlanta. That is a wonderful organization, and they're just kicking off their next campaign to plant. They've planted 1 million trees, and they're looking at kicking off another 1 million. So thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Macrina, so you mentioned in your comments that there are certain things that keep you up at night. I want you to dig a little deeper and share with us, and what are those things that sort of keep you up at night. But more importantly, if you could wave a magic wand and do anything in the city of Atlanta regarding your Department of Watershed, what would that one accomplishment be? If you can work with the city council, the mayor's office, what would that one project or accomplishment be for you?
But Tharon, can she share the wand too? I mean, we all love having one.
Yeah, well, there's only one today. Yeah.
I look at the challenges facing Watershed on multiple levels. Another thing that keeps me up is the workforce. Our workforce is changing. We're looking at 43% attrition rate through retirement. We've already experienced 17%. And the experience walking out the door is something that we can't replace. So not just looking at the people leaving, but who do we recruit? Thinking forward, our workforce needs to change in that we need a different skill set. We need people who understand how quickly technology is changing, and how do you apply that technology? Really, how can we adapt different technologies that we have today and that we're going to have tomorrow to what we're doing today, and to replace some of that workforce, because the baby boomers are all retiring. We're not going to have the numbers, and we're not having young people going into technical fields. We feel it in this industry. Throughout the world, we feel it. There's just not enough technical people. So just looking at that perspective and what that means to the water industry, what it means to really the city of Atlanta overall. Then looking at technology in general, technology and data. How are we using that data? We have so much data, but we haven't really applied that data to improve what we're doing today. We need to do that. We need to think of also innovation, adaptation. Eloisa and I were talking about entrepreneurs and how important they are, and what they come up with, and how much it can help the water industry specifically. So there are a lot of things that we're working on. Mayor Reed is absolutely wonderful in his support of innovation. He loves to be first. So if there's something new to try, yes. If there's something new to try, or if Atlanta can be the first, we are there. So just thinking of different ways to do things. There are definitely challenges on a day-to-day basis, and something that everyone can help with this We are, right now, we have to upgrade our plants. We have to replace certain things. We have to reduce spills. We have 2 consent decrees. One we completed very successfully. We're working through the second. Those consent decrees are the reason why we have such a heavy debt, but the reason also why we have such a huge capital program. Well, that's all about spills. And when I look at spills and the reason why we're having these spills, and some of them happen in your backyard, it's because of our behavior. So how can you help in that area? What we're finding is more than 70% of our spills is caused by grease and what we call debris. That debris can be anything from a brick that's actually thrown into our system to wipes, personal wipes, baby wipes, you name it. These things, wipes actually clog up our pumps. They shut down our system. It's very, very costly, but they cause blockages on our sewer pipes, which then cause spills. So if you want to do your part, don't put wipes down the toilet. There are only 2 things that should go down the toilet, and I won't elaborate. Also, don't pour grease. In fact, don't pour anything down your garbage disposal. If I could eliminate garbage disposal, if I could outlaw them, that would be a huge improvement to our sewer system. Yes.
Dr. Klementich, if you, and I've had the pleasure of doing this recently, the mayor spoke to my Leadership Atlanta class, and probably 65% of that speech that he made was about the number of jobs, the tens of thousands of jobs that are coming to Atlanta, particularly to downtown Atlanta. Now, I also want you to dig a little deeper too. So we know that Invest Atlanta plays a key role in attracting companies to Atlanta that are out of state, but also that there are counties that are outside the metro area. Tell us some of the things that we wouldn't read about, or some of the things that we would not imagine that goes into the process of recruiting a business, a major company like Porsche and others, to come to Atlanta. Share with us some of your intimate or stories in trying to get those businesses to come.
Right, but no, everyone has to promise not to say anything that So for us, it really, each company is different. Each company comes, what I've been seeing, I'll just tell you some of the trends that we're seeing and how things are changing. When I started doing this several years ago, it was really through site selectors. So someone at the company would say, hey, I'm thinking of possibly moving, would call up their site selector. And the site selector would then do the analysis based on what the need is. So oftentimes companies will say, I want to be next to a transportation hub. I want to be next to a highway. I want high roofs, or I need a lot of land. And it's based on what they say their needs are that the site selector would then divvy down and say, okay, based on what your requirements are, I think you should go, and these are my major competitors, Dallas, Atlanta, or Florida, somewhere in Florida. Those have been the 3 that I've seen consistently that we're competing against. Now, what's ironic though, what things are changing is you have some CEOs that first say, call up their law firms now. So I've now been getting referrals to law firms. So I don't know if you know, so that's why I'm reaching more out to my law colleagues and saying, hey, how are you doing? Let's go get a cup of coffee. Because what some CEOs will tell me what the legal ramifications are of moving my company from this state to the next state. So it depends on the CEO's frame of mind. So now, I've now created relationships with law firms, which that typically didn't happen. So now the doors are coming in through law firms, site selectors, and one new one, which is my accountants. Because I have some CEOs that will say, hey, run the numbers. What are the tax benefits? Am I in an opportunity zone? Do they have any other issue that I should know? What is their tax rate? So it really depends on the CEO and where their focus is. I can pretty much tell based on the company. And then from there, I'll know exactly where it's going to come in, from my accounting firm, from my law firm, or from my traditional site selector. Once we make the outreach and we understand, oftentimes this is the funnest part of my job. don't tell anyone, it's coming with the project name. Okay, so I just think that's really cool. So we've got these really, I don't know if you've ever heard when they don't tell you their name until you sign some sort of NDA. I've made the funnest names up from Project Abu Dhabi because the person I was talking to was telling me about his kid's summer trip to Abu Dhabi, and that way I wouldn't forget, because look, you have 20 of these, you start forgetting. Or Project Red, because the person I was talking to was wearing this beautiful red dress. I mean, it's just this great art. No one ever explained, how'd you come up with the name? And they always think it's it's just something to help me remember. But it's really, that's the fun part, guys. All right. So once we then create the name, then the question is understand what are the touch points? Is it jobs? Are they looking for talent pipelines? So that's why I've worked more with Michael. I've reached out. I was reaching out with him and saying, how do I get on your board? How do I participate? Because a lot of my companies today are saying, I am going where the workforce is. Because what they're noticing is that the millennials for today, what they're doing is they're saying, first, this is where I want to live. And then they look around and go like, oh, okay, I love where I live. Now I got to figure out where I want to work. And they literally go like this and say, okay, I want to work for these companies because I don't need to drive to these companies. In fact, last week we were interviewing an individual, and that individual said to me, you know, I turned down a job. And I was like, why did you turn down a job? Lives in the 4th ward, okay? Said, because I got offered a job in Sandy Springs. Nothing against if anybody's with Sandy Springs. This is what he said. It's too far for me to drive. I was like, really? Like when I got a job, heck, I've moved 3 times for jobs. Like it's the mindset is completely different, and companies realize that. So really, it's creating the relationship, understanding workforce. So back to your main question is, what we understand first is understand where the source is, because that will tell me what the CEO's focus is. Understand what the issues are that's making them move. Then I try to solve those. So it could be living standard, it could be jobs, it could be cost of business, and then we start to be competitive on that. And once we understand where the pain points are, then we start to look at what part of, usually by the time they come to me, they tell me exactly where they want to be. I have very little influence specifically where exactly in the city or what building they go to. And then we start, once we understand that, we understand what the gaps are, and then Texas, just in case you guys don't know, has a specific revenue stream for economic development. So that is why their incentive packages are so aggressive every time I'm competing against them. So those are things that then I look into analysis and try to determine what the incentive packages will be from other cities and then how we'd be competitive as well. So it's a pretty complex, there is no specific depends and that kind of all moving, but that has been one of the things that has been attractive. And I have to tell you, worked for several mayors. I've worked at the state level, and this has to be the most aggressive mayor I have ever worked for is Mayor Reed. He will not let any company leave if we can influence in some sort of way and attract them, and it's fabulous, and it's been an honor to work for him because it's really exciting to be able to, really in my career, we've hit over 25,000 jobs. That is uncalled, I mean, that is really just unprecedented. The fact that we were able to attract headquarters, big deal, and just the fact that we have a mayor that's pushing and supporting, it's really turning things around. We're seeing that. And Michael talks, I love his report, that the new one that you put out. If you see for the last 4 reporting cycles, Atlanta's been 1 to the 3rd highest job creators in the nation here. So if you see movement of people, where they're going, I mean, I'm just hoping we get to a question of where we see Atlanta. I'm telling you, Atlanta is
trying to get there,
to
Eloisa.
lead this nation, not only technology, innovation, and job growth and investment. That's why it's a great place to be.
Well, thank you. Theia, so you talked about and one of the things that really stuck out to me was that you really spoke very passionately about the 15 women that you get a chance to work with every single day. Michael and I are very aware, and we know this, that women rule the world. Men, we're just here, and we're really forced to be obedient to women. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. So I want you to talk to us about sort of your journey in really starting WE. And secondly, talk about the day-to-day of managing and working with 15 very smart, very ambitious, women who are entrepreneurs. And then lastly, talk to us a little bit about how you've been able to work with the private sector and the role that they're playing in partnering with you and we and the mayor and the city of Atlanta.
Well, first, I'm just glad we have on camera. I hope that is definitely taping the two men who admitted that we are.
Yeah. I got Rita Samuels in the audience now. I got to do right. Yeah, I got to do right.
So first, a little bit about my journey, and I'm happy to share that. I came into this role almost 2 years ago and was really given a blank slate. Here's the goal and my vision for the initiative. Again, as we've heard so many folks reiterate, Mayor Reed's very innovative, very forward and progressive thought process in creating opportunities to support growth in the city. Here's the blank slate. Here's what I want to accomplish it. Go do it. And it's sort of ironic to sit here with Eloisa because she was actually one of the first people I met when I came down to really do the fact-finding and the understanding of the ecosystem that was already in place to support entrepreneurs here in Atlanta. She's one of the first people I sat with to really get a framework for what I would be working with and what the pulse of Atlanta was as it relates to entrepreneurs. And so I really used my first year in that fact-finding mission, understanding what the environment was like, what was the backdrop of Atlanta, and everything that you've heard here today rings true for what I found out as well too. Atlanta leads the nation in so many ways in terms of quality of life, in terms of the opportunities that it presents for people who want to start a business. And so all of that really took up my first real year in this position, was understanding that ecosystem, understanding who the key players were in making it happen, and then really trying to put some framework around how do we work cohesively. And so I'll sort of jump to your third question around working with the private sector, because that has been an extremely critical piece of this initiative. So we're unique in that we are the only initiative of our kind in the nation that is a completely city-funded initiative. This program was completely started directly out of the mayor's office. The funding for it came directly from the city of Atlanta. You will not find that anywhere else nationwide. Trust me, I've done the research. And what's even more impressive is that the other cities are now calling us and saying, how do we replicate this model? Is this something that you could come meet with us in New York, in Seattle, in Boston, and share with us? There are other cities that are doing a great job around supporting their entrepreneurs, for sure. We have some really great models in like Portland and Oakland that are doing some great work. But in terms of one that is completely city-backed and supportive of women, this is the first of its kind. The closest thing I could find to it, which is still laughable to me, is in Pakistan. So, that first year was really about opening my eyes up, taking on a new perspective of what does this mean? What does this mean about Atlanta? And more importantly, why is this initiative going to be unique to Atlanta and to its brand? Because I think one thing you all may have picked up on as we're talking about is Atlanta really is a brand. It has become its own really special city and what it's offering its community. And so I really wanted to focus on how, if we're going to stand this initiative up, if we're going to be about supporting women and supporting women in terms of creating opportunities for them to gain equal footing in areas where it really matters most, what does that really look like? What does that mean, and how are we going to do it? And so we provided this opportunity for 15 women selected through a competitive process. 108 applicants. I laugh because Eloisa was involved in helping the selection process when she became an advisory board member of those 108. And I remember getting your text like, there are 108 applications on my desk. But so it was a really aggressive, very intentional application process to identify who we thought we could help the most, not only from the perspective of helping entrepreneurs, but also of helping the city continue on this path towards being a leader towards entrepreneurship growth. And so we looked at business models that were company building business models. These business models are scalable, they have traction, and they are able to create jobs. And so I like to say that these are business models that just so happen to be run by women or owned by women, because the reality is they easily translate over to men as well. These are women in technology, women who are running software application companies, women in fintech, really unique business models, and we're unique in that space as well, because often you'll hear, and I get this question a lot, are these all women in tech? Are these all women? Someone said to me,
No, dig deep. We're digging deep.
Okay, well, a man said to me recently, he said, explain to me, what are these women doing? Are they all making purses?
Oh, no.
So, what are they making? And I have to say, what's really unique is that these women are all doing really diverse things. Their business models are all very diverse. They are all a great representation of the city of Atlanta. They are all culturally, socially, economically different. They all have business models that offer different things, different products and different services. But what they do have that unites them, and these are all services and products that are responsive. They are solving a need in the community. They are solving a market need. They are timely. They are relevant. They absolutely have the opportunity to create jobs, regardless of whether or not they were run by a woman or not. And so when we think about that, what that looks like, we actually haven't kicked off the 15 months yet with these women. We have our grand opening in exactly 1 week. Next week we'll be opening our incubator doors. But what that really looks like is there is a designated space, a designated office space for each of these women in this incredible repurposed building, the Flatiron building, not even a half a mile from here, where these women will be able to completely focus on just growing their business. That is our ask of them. Focus for the next 15 months on growing this business into a model that can stay in Atlanta and create opportunities for jobs and create opportunities for another class of women entrepreneurs to come in and have that opportunity just like you do. But what I can tell you in working with them every day is that you have these are some of the most gracious, pay it forward minded women. They are so interested more so in the opportunity for them and how they are going to create a legacy for other women in the community to have opportunities such as this. And so if their business models are not completely a social entrepreneur-based model, meaning that they're doing something good for the community, or they're a business model that's looking to shift or solve a problem in the community, they have a component to it that is. They have something about their business where they're saying, I want to do this because I want to help the community, or I want to help children, or I want to help the next group of entrepreneurs, and this is how I plan to do it. So it's an incredible and very, very effective way to see our city grow and our city embrace and be inclusive of women in these new opportunities that they are going to present every day.
Thank you. All right, Mike, I think I gave us some cover by the earlier. But, one thing that I think is so unique about what you are doing is, and I'll just say it, you really make this transition to AWDA at a time where the department was really going through a transformation. You really stepped in and really hit the ground running. So I also want you to really dig a little deeper and really talk to us about, what was sort of the culture? What are some of the things that you had to do as a person coming in, leading this agency, this organization that does so much for young people? But what were some of the things that you did right away to really sort of create a culture, a working environment where everyone could excel? And then secondly, what are some of the things that, you think that people really don't know about AWDA? If you could tell them one of the biggest myths or misconceptions, but what are some of the things that if you could stand in front of the 400,000 plus citizens of Atlanta, you could tell them one thing about the services that you provide, what would that be?
Sure. So for those who don't know, I'll give just a little bit of background. So, and I won't tell the whole story, but I've got a whole story about how it was like May the 7th. I remember the date. It's May 7th, 2014. I was the mayor's senior advisor at the time. I come in after Tharon went on to make more money. I come in to be the mayor's senior advisor. And I had a terrible headache. And the mayor calls me in his office, and sometimes when he calls you in his office, you never know what's going to happen. So I was my office was literally next door to his, and so he called me in his office, and I started going through my head of all of the things I was supposed to do that I may not have done yet. And so he says, hey, Mike, the director of AWDA just resigned. I'm going to send you over. I need you to go take it over. I need you to go fix it. And I was kind of like, what? I was like, he was like, yeah, but I need you to do this job too for a little while. So I need you to do both. And you just need to figure out how to be bigger. And this is literally how the conversation went. It's like, you just need to figure out how to be bigger. So let me tell you why I was so shocked. Well, at that time, the Atlanta Workforce Development Agency was under federal criminal investigation by the United States Attorney's Office. The city auditor had just issued a report that called it profoundly dysfunctional and said that the city should destroy, that the city council and the mayor should completely destroy it because it couldn't be fixed. The state had just sanctioned the agency for failure to even have a budget or a cost allocation plan when dealing with grant funds. The AJC had run 3 consecutive front page articles devoting a lot of print to the investigation they had done for over a year and a half to how money had gone to companies that had non-existent training programs. And so I'm 32 when I took it over. I'm 38 now, so I've only been there 2 years though. So you know, to Theron's point, so I go into this organization that has all of these sort of systemic issues, and I thought the first thing I should do is figure out exactly what they did there. So I went on the line and Googled Atlanta Workforce Development Agency and went to the website to kind of figure out what they did. And then the next day at 9 o'clock, I was in the office as the interim executive director trying to navigate all of these issues. And candidly, I just started one issue at a time. So I honestly didn't know what I was going to do. So I did a couple of things. One, I reached out to people. And I think that, your life oftentimes and decisions you make oftentimes are influenced by how good the advice is that you receive. So I reached out to people throughout the city. And I, fortunately for me, I had proven myself, I think, to be a good colleague to other people in the city. And so they were willing to help me in return. And so I reached out to people for their advice and counsel. I reached out to other workforce development directors. And I reached out to people who had generally run organizations successfully to figure out what I should do. They gave me a couple of book recommendations, Good to Great, The Coming Jobs War, Driving Excellence. I read those books, read them in about a week. And started using tools from people who had done this before. And one of my favorite tools is Jim Collins' book, Good to Great. He says, first who, then what. So decide who's going to be on the bus with you before you decide what direction the bus is going to go. And so I started making decisions then about, who was going to be on the bus. And they were very tough decisions. For anybody who's ever had to lay somebody off, that is a very hard thing to do, to make tough decisions. I mean, unless you're a sociopath, it's hard to lay people off. Because you know these people have families, and so you know that they need to take care of themselves, and those are hard decisions. But you've almost got to be willing to cut the cancer out of your organization if you want it to succeed. And so those were very tough decisions, especially for me. I was 32, and so a lot of these people were. I don't think anybody in there that was working there was younger than I was. And so it was very hard to look at an older person in the face, when you've been taught your whole life to have respect for your elders, and say, I'm sorry, but I've got to let you go. And they're looking at me like, who is this kid, right? And then we just started, there's nothing more important to me than the people who you work with. And I think just generally speaking, if you treat people with respect, and even in laying people off, I didn't treat people badly. I treated them as professionals and with respect. And I think if you treat people with respect, in turn, they will treat you with respect. And if you invest in the growth and development of people. And so I really just, started little bit by little bit changing the culture. So every week I send my staff a weekly message. Sometimes it's inspirational, sometimes it's aspirational, sometimes it's, it's about things that we need to do or focus on for the next week. So every single Friday I send what I call a director's weekly message to my staff just to talk to them. I meet with my entire team every other week. I meet with the individual teams, at least once a month. I constantly communicate with my teams all of the time so that they know exactly where our priorities are. They know that they're valued. I wanted them to come in every day understanding their relevance and their purpose to the overall mission of the organization, so that the receptionist knows that you matter too. And you matter because when somebody walks in the door, you're the first person they see. And whether you give them hope or not is going to determine whether or not they go to that next level. So everybody plays a part. And let me show you how important is the part you play in this organization, right? And so that was really there in how I started to change the culture, just really relying on the people. And then when I got the people right, I started to focus on how do we make this better? How do we start to do things? How do we use data and research? How do we make sure? And then I would get everybody to buy into it. So I would say, let's sit in a circle and let's talk about if you could build the perfect workforce system, what would you do? What are the things we need to do? So that when I came up with a plan, it wasn't something that was foreign to them. They could see their ideas in it. So they were stakeholders in it. So they could say, oh yeah, that was my idea to streamline orientation and have it 2 days a week. Or that was my idea to do an online video. Oh great, he's gonna do social media now. That was the idea I had. And they could see the overall plan. They could see their ideas in it. And so when I presented the plan, they were like, oh yeah, I like this, because they could see themselves. They felt like they were a part of it. And then, I had some things that I was just like, there's no tolerance for certain things. If somebody walks in our door and you treat them poorly, you're not gonna stay and work for me. I'm not gonna tolerate that. If you try to bully a colleague, I'm not tolerating that. You can't talk bad to somebody who works for me or that walks in our door, because I can't talk bad to them and I'm the boss. So I'm not gonna tolerate certain things. And so we started, you got to chip away at these things. And so, by the time we looked around 6 or 9 months later, people were like, this place is changing, right? And then, one of the things that the mayor always talks about is the look and feel of things. So we had to start changing the look and feel of our building, because it looked like a prison when I first got there. And so I was like, we need to brighten this up, put some quotes on the wall, add some paint here, put some new carpet there. Like, this stuff is old. Like, let's get some new stuff in here. But we just gradually worked at it, and then people, if I miss a week of sending a weekly message, like, people will email me like, hey, I didn't see the weekly message. I'm like, I'm sorry. Yeah. So they let me know. And so these are things that they've come, to rely on. And I would say, if I could tell people, one thing about the work we do at the Workforce Agency is that I don't think sometimes that people understand the enormous barriers that people face to employment that we have to deal with. I mean, you're talking about kids who are aging out of the foster care system, and the barriers are not mutually exclusive. So somebody might have 6 or 7 barriers. They may have a criminal background, not have a GED or high school diploma, and be homeless. So the barriers are not mutually exclusive. And the work we do, I wanted to change the culture from one where it was some sort of social program to one where we actually provided a value to people who are hiring. So I don't want you to come and say, well, I'm going to participate in an AWDA program because I have to. I want you to come there and say, they work so hard to train these people, to get them the soft skills and the hard skills they need, that I know if I get somebody from them, they're going to have somebody who's coaching them through. They're going to have somebody who's qualified to do the job, who has the hard skills, who has the soft skills. I want employers to know that we're not just asking you to do us a favor. We're actually doing you a favor by giving you somebody who's qualified to do the job, because we've worked with them to the point where they're ready and they're prepared, and and when they go to work for you, that they're going to have a support system in place. And so, I mean, those would probably Tharon would be what I would say.
Thank you.
There are enormous barriers people face to employment, and we work with them no matter what their situation or circumstances are.
Got it. All right, we have roughly about 10 minutes left. So if you want to ask a question, can you come up to this microphone? And to the panelists, if we can keep the answer within 60 to 90 seconds, because I know that we want to basically give everyone an opportunity to ask a question. If you can just tell us your name, your organization, and then just ask your question. And then if you want to specifically ask it to any one individual, please specify that in your question.
Really. My name's Felicia Davis. I'm with Women Flying High, LLC, and the Building Green Initiative. I'm most interested in the west side of Atlanta, and within that context, opportunities specifically for women-owned businesses. So if everybody kind of gave a really good big picture overall, but we know that water's been an issue, business, economic development, what's happening for women, environmental's been there, workforce is there, so y'all could just jump in. That would be really good to hear. Thanks.
I think the West Side TAD is.
So for West Side, I'd say specifically, I think Felicia, you're asking about what women businesses could potentially have opportunity on the West Side? Is that?
And kind of from your seats, what is going on that women-owned businesses can connect with in terms of opportunity? If it's a growth opportunity, maybe it's not.
No, it's a huge growth opportunity. I'd say on two kind of spectrums to answer your question, at least from Invest Atlanta's point of view. First is there is a concerted effort on redevelopment of the vacant and abandoned parcels. So Invest Atlanta has a strategy to go in and buy some of those parcels. So I would say specifically if you're in the construction areas, that what we'll do is once we buy those parcels, we're going to quickly either rebuild those residential homes or the multifamily homes. We got to come in and determine and how we clean them up and come in and remodel them, add them, bring them back to higher and better use. So there will be opportunities there. I'd also say that there's going to be opportunities on the key commercial corridors like Donnelly Hollowell that really, and MLK, that we're looking at the retail component. This is a community that's been under-retailed and lack of services. So if you have a business you want to expand, this may be a key time to come in, and the corridor is going to begin to change, and it's going to require services that maybe your company can actually provide to as well. We have other initiatives as well from, we're looking at maybe an art community. What can we do there to help stimulate and leverage art? We're looking at a beautification program as well. We're looking at obviously the business development side and the housing and residential side. So, and it's not just Invest Atlanta. It has got to be one of the biggest movements that I've seen, from Invest Atlanta to the Blank Foundation to businesses to other nonprofits, are all focused in on this community. So there'll be a lot of diverse type of opportunities. We also have a program where we're trying to get renters to be homeowners. So if your business is to offer kind of training programs, credit analysis, any type of service that we need, that this would be a great opportunity for you else to come in. Because what we realize is the acquisition of property is very complex. There's a lot of title issues. So and I mention all this because there's plenty of opportunities plug in depending on what your business and your area of focus is.
Did anyone else want to answer that question?
I just want to add that my office is working on a Greenway project. We just finished master planning that, and Watershed Department has been very engaged in this effort over the years. And if we get the green light, and I'm working on the funding component, there will be a need for help with trail construction. If you're interested in getting in the West Side, Felicia, I know you're very aware of all the community activities that are going on, but the West Side Future Fund, which is a key driver of trying to kickstart the economy in this community, every month, the first and third Friday mornings at City of Refuge, they have a big gathering. It starts at 7:15 in the morning. It's early, but it's funded in part by the Chick-fil-A Foundation, so you get free Chick-fil-A biscuits. So that's a good incentive. And they have an hour-long or so presentation. Eloisa, Dr. Klementich, presented last time, and they're talking about all the opportunities on the West Side. So that's just a great way to plug in what's going on in that community.
All right, next question. Anyone? Yes.
Durham McCombs, I'm with MARTA. And I'm just wondering, actually the question is for Stephanie, for the electric hybrid outlets and as part of your overall plan, are you partnering with other agencies? Is there a plan to put them in specific locations by type? What's the goal?
So initially we're kickstarting this as a municipal only program. I would love to see it expand to have publicly accessible charging stations. But the 60 vehicles that we're adding to the city's fleet right now are all internal. And so we're siting the charging stations at parking decks and parking lots that are owned by the city. The whole program is being funded off book, so no taxpayer dollars are going towards this program. We're working on it with a private company that, actually, let me correct that. There are some taxpayer dollars to purchase the vehicles, but there's a savings because the O&M, the operation and maintenance of electric vehicles is so minimal that these cars actually cost less, and we're buying them in bulk, and we're taking advantage of tax credits. So we partner with a private company called Vision Fleet. They purchase the vehicles, they take advantage of the federal sales tax credit, lease the vehicles to the city at a reduced rate, and provide all the O&M and the charging stations. But I would love to see it ramped up and would love to partner with MARTA on that. And I've had some conversations with MARTA. Would love to share that with you about using electric buses more, which I think is an amazing opportunity to improve our greenhouse gas emissions.
Any other questions? Well, I think we have a little extra time, right, Jan, because you're the boss, and I want to make sure I follow the line. Okay. Well, I'll go back and ask a question, and feel free if you have a question for the panel, just raise your hand. I want to go to the question I think that Eloisa mentioned earlier that you wanted to get to, and I'll start with Commissioner Macrina. What do you see the city of Atlanta, particularly in your department, what do you envision the next 5 years really looks like? So when we get to 2020, 2021, what are some of the cutting edge technology ideas, or you talked a lot about data, but what are some of those things in the next 5 years? What's your vision for your department in the city of Atlanta?
Well, we have a new approach, and it's going to be very visible to the communities. We are using the triple bottom line when we consider projects and how we do projects. So we want to make sure that we're not just choosing the best engineering solution, but one that would definitely protect the environment, help with economic vitality, and also add to the communities. And a lot of you have seen the Fourth Ward Park Pond, and that's a great example of what I'm talking about when we look at the triple bottom line. That project was originally to be an underground storage vault, so to speak. But we brought that above ground, and we created this beautiful pond. And we actually saved $14 million doing it that way. And after that pond was built, and of course the rest of the park around it, we saw people invest over $500 million in development. So that is the way that we are moving forward with most of our projects. A lot of our projects are still the good old pipe rehab, but when we do a combination project, we will use the triple bottom line. Part of that is green infrastructure, so the city will be even greener than it is. We've got one of the largest, if not the largest, permeable paver project in the country, and that is already getting a lot of accolades from the community. It's working very well as far as dealing with the drainage problem in that community, as well as relieving our combined sewer system. So I think the city will look a lot different. Our projects in Watershed will be very visible and will add a lot more to the community instead of just an engineering solution. And I do want to add that the city of Atlanta and we in Watershed, we get hit with a lot of negative press. We're also getting positive press, which is a very good thing for us. But the rest of the industry, the water industry, looks at Atlanta as a utility in the forefront. So we have gotten a lot of attention. In fact, I just got back from Abu Dhabi on Saturday. I was invited to speak in Abu Dhabi at a Global Water Summit. And that is because Atlanta, to the rest of the world, rest of the water industry, is one of the top. So that's something that very few people, I think, know that.
Okay. So I don't mean to do this, Eloisa. We can shorten the response because I think we got a few minutes, and then we're going to have a presentation here at the end.
Okay.
So we'll just work our way down the table, but try to keep it brief.
And then
I have a question.
Oh, you have a question? I didn't see you. I'm so sorry.
Okay.
It's okay.
Well, why don't we
With those bright lights.
why don't we take your question, and then you guys can ask these great panelists what their vision. So thank you, Commissioner, for that. We'll take this question, and then we'll answer, then we'll end the program.
Thank you. I've learned a lot today. I appreciate you guys being here. My name is Shauna Lee Garvin. I have two companies. One is Flying High Sign and Display at the airport, and the other one is AETC, which is a staffing company, Airport Employment and Training Center. We used to be a really good partner with the Atlanta Workforce Development. And Michael, I did meet you. This question is for you.
Okay.
I did meet you one day, and I think it was at the beginning of all of that.
Yeah, sure.
Well, when I came to see you, you had a very awful cold, and you were miserable. But I have to forgive you for that, because you weren't sure what was going to happen next. So I want to ask, so how do I, as a business, because I have other clients I represent in Marksville, connect with the Atlanta workforce
Sure.
now? Because I know it's a new way,
Yeah.
but I go out connecting with other businesses that already have contracts and work at the airport and around the city.
Yeah.
And we find people for them. So what is the process
Okay,
now?
sure.
Because it's so completely different. And, you know, I had built a relationship, and so I'm trying to figure out how to
Sure.
reconnect.
Sure. So first of all, I apologize for being miserable that day. I'm generally a pleasant person. So let me say, so two things. One, in our restructure, one of the things that happened is we completely changed the way we structure the agency from one that was siloed based on funding streams to one that was functionally integrated. So we now have a business relations manager and a business relations team that is specifically focused on building relationships with the employers. It's run by Amit Kanduri, who I recruited from Deloitte. And so I convinced a guy to leave his great career at Deloitte to come and help me at the Atlanta Workforce Development Agency because he had this background in consulting and working with businesses and companies. And so there's a great team there that will certainly meet with employers, businesses, and if it's a non-employee relationship, we have a Lance Irvin, who I recruited from APS, who runs our strategic partnership initiative. So if it's a business, a company, if you're a business or a company and you need to get in touch with us or you need a point of contact, Amit Kanduri, who I can certainly introduce you to, but we have a business relations division that is specifically focused on meeting employer needs. Otherwise, any other partnership, it goes through our strategic partnership division.
Well, great. Well, please join me in giving our great panelists a round of applause. You guys did an excellent job. And thank you for being candid and really allowing me to ask some very tough questions. So I'm going to bring Jan and Daphne up. I think they have some very special gifts for everyone.
We do. Thank you
Okay.
all so very much. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Tharon.
Thank you.
Michael Sterling.
I love the colors.
I know.
Yeah, I know.
Yes. We have one more special presentation. She does.
Absolutely.
Surprise. But we have something for Commissioner Joann.
Hey, very nice.
Watershed has been a consistent sponsor early. You all were our first check that we got this year. And just you're always, whatever we need, you give us volunteers. You're just all in. And so this sculptural rendering of a dewdrop foliage was designed by Hans Gabo Farbell and chosen especially for Joann Macrina in appreciation of her support for WICERS 2016. So thank you.
Wonderful.